The stars above Earth sparkled like countless tiny diamonds, but in the vast galaxy, humanity was almost invisible. Other empires laughed at Earth, calling it weak, backward, and unworthy of attention. They built massive fleets, conquered planets, and spread fear across the stars. Earth, in comparison, seemed small and fragile. Yet beneath its calm surface, a secret slept, hidden from the galaxy's eyes, a warship unlike any other. In a hidden dockyard deep under the planet's atmosphere, engineers worked tirelessly. Every corridor hummed with quiet energy. Sparks flew, machines whirred, and holographic schematics floated in the air. At the center of it all rested the prototype warship Aegis. It was small, sleek, almost fragile in appearance, but it carried power beyond imagination. The ship had been ignored by Earth's own leaders, dismissed as a dream, a project too daring, too unconventional. Still, the engineers believed. They whispered hope into its circuits, into its plasma conduits, into every weapon and system. "You are our protector," one engineer murmured, touching the hull gently. "One day you will show them what humanity is capable of." Captain Alara Quinn, young but brave, walked along the docking bay, her eyes scanning the ship. The Aegis was more than metal and technology, it felt alive. Its engines hummed softly, responding to her presence as if it recognized her as its partner in what was to come. She ran simulations, adjusted controls, and checked every weapon system. "No one believes in us," she whispered softly. "But that's fine. We don't need them. We just need to be ready." Outside, the galaxy moved in its usual rhythm. The Xyrix Empire, a merciless and sprawling force, had already crushed dozens of civilizations, leaving only despair in its wake. Their Grand Armada, a fleet of 700,000 warships, was unmatched in size and strength. They crushed worlds like pebbles, and they had never faced a challenge they could not destroy. Yet the Aegis, small and overlooked, waited patiently, hidden from sensors and satellites, ready for a moment that no one else could see coming. On Earth, ordinary people lived ordinary lives, unaware of the shadow that was about to fall over them. Children played beneath the sunlight, dreaming of heroes they had only seen in stories. Families argued about trivial things, unaware that above them in the silent void of space the fate of their entire planet hung in balance. Yet in the heart of the hidden dockyard, Captain Quinn felt the weight of the coming storm. She was not just piloting a ship, she carried the hope, the pride, and the survival of a species that had been laughed at for centuries. She sat in the cockpit of the Aegis, her hands brushing over the controls, feeling the quiet power flowing through the ship. The systems responded instantly, almost as if the vessel could sense her determination. "It's just you and me, old friend," she whispered. "We'll show them what humanity can do." Her heart beat faster, not with fear but with resolve. The galaxy might ignore Earth, but she would make sure they would never forget it. As the stars shimmered outside the hull, the Aegis remained calm, cloaked in shadow, a silent guardian waiting for the impossible moment. Engineers glanced at each other, their eyes filled with hope and fear. They knew the day of reckoning was coming. And somewhere in the galaxy, the Grand Armada would soon learn that one small, ignored warship from a tiny blue planet could change everything. The universe might have laughed at Earth. The empires might have dismissed it. But the Aegis and the courage of one determined captain were about to prove that even the smallest spark could ignite a storm that no one would survive. Days passed quietly on Earth, though in the depths of space a storm was gathering. Scouts had detected movement at the edge of the galaxy. The Xyrix Empire was advancing, a massive, unstoppable force. Their Grand Armada, 700,000 warships strong, moved like a dark tide, swallowing stars and systems without mercy. Panic spread across Earth's military command. Leaders shouted, argued, and debated strategies, but none of their plans could match the sheer scale of the approaching fleet. Every calculation failed. Every defense seemed fragile against the Armada's unstoppable power. In the hidden dockyards, the Aegis remained silent, waiting for the moment it was meant to act. Captain Alara Quinn studied the galaxy-wide communications, observing the panic and fear sweeping through Earth's defenses. She felt the pressure in her chest, heavy and unyielding. Humanity had always been underestimated, dismissed as weak, and now their survival rested on one small ship and her command. The orders finally came. Deploy the Aegis. The word prototype had long been a curse among Earth's leaders. They had called it experimental, untested, too risky. Many had even wanted it scrapped. Yet now, with the Grand Armada closing in, the hope of an entire species rested in the hands of this lone vessel. Alara's hands trembled slightly as she activated the engines. The ship came alive with a soft hum, cloaking shields flickering to life, hiding the Aegis from all sensors. Every system pulsed with energy, ready to strike. "It's just you and me," she whispered, gripping the controls. Time to show them. Across the void, the Xyrix Admiral observed the approaching solar systems. His cold, calculating eyes narrowed as he saw nothing yet sensed the presence of something hidden. He had faced thousands of worlds, destroyed entire fleets, and left civilizations in ashes. But Earth had never been on his radar. "Pathetic," he muttered, watching the tiny blue planet spin beneath the distant sun. "They send one toy to face my armada?" Alara did not flinch. She studied the movements of the Empire's fleet, memorizing patterns and formations. She noted the weak points, the overextended wings, the blind spots in their defenses. The Aegis responded instantly, as if it could anticipate her thoughts, moving silently toward the front lines. Every maneuver was precise, every calculation exact. The galaxy might have ignored Earth, but now it would pay attention in a way no one could imagine. On Earth, citizens remained unaware of the danger, going about their lives beneath peaceful skies. Children laughed, parents worked, couples walked under sunlight and moonlight alike. They had no idea that the largest fleet ever assembled in history was on its way, ready to bring fire and death to their world. Yet in the cockpit of the Aegis, Alara felt their lives resting on her shoulders. She felt their hope, their fear, their trust, all bound to her courage and skill. As the Grand Armada drew closer, massive shadows of distant warships began to blot out the stars. Humanity's fleets looked tiny in comparison, sparks against an ocean of steel. The Xyrix Admiral's voice crackled over communications, filled with disdain and anger. "Show yourselves," he bellowed. "Face the might of the Empire." Alara's eyes glinted with determination. She whispered to the Aegis, "Let's show them what they never expected. Let's show them Earth." And with a sudden surge of power, the ship leapt forward, cloaked and silent, moving like a phantom toward the unstoppable tide. The battle had not yet begun, but the first strike was already being prepared, and the galaxy would soon remember the name of one small, ignored warship and the courage of a young captain who refused to be dismissed. The stars seemed to hold their breath as the Aegis moved closer to the Xyrix Grand Armada. Captain Alara Quinn gripped the controls, her heart racing with both fear and determination. She knew the odds were impossible. One small ship alone against 700,000 warships, it was unthinkable. Yet every system aboard the Aegis hummed with energy. Every weapon primed, every sensor alive. The ship was no longer just metal. It was a partner, a living shield and a silent sword ready to strike. Suddenly, the first opportunity appeared. A formation of Xyrix cruisers drifted slightly apart, their shields focused elsewhere. Alara's fingers flew over the controls. The Aegis's plasma cannons fired with surgical precision, striking the engines and command centers of the lead ships. In brilliant flashes of light, entire wings of the enemy fleet vanished. The explosions were silent in the vacuum of space, yet the chaos that followed was deafening across the Armada's communications. The Xyrix Admiral froze as he watched his warships fall one by one. He had faced countless enemies, but none had moved with such speed, such unpredictability. The humans, he thought, were weak, insignificant, and yet here was one vessel striking with precision and intelligence. "Impossible," he roared, his voice echoing across the command channels. "How can one ship do this?" Alara did not answer. She focused entirely on the next wave. The Aegis darted through space like a phantom, invisible to sensors, untouchable by most weapons. Every shot was calculated, every move premeditated, yet executed with instinctual grace. Ships that had never known fear began to panic, colliding with one another, falling into disarray. Humanity's secret weapon was no longer hidden. It was a storm no one had predicted. Yet the battle was not without danger. The Xyrix fleet regrouped quickly, focusing fire on the lone Earth ship. Shields flared, warning lights blinked, and the hum of the engine strained under sudden pressure. Alara's jaw tightened as she diverted power to critical systems, weaving through enemy fire with every ounce of skill and courage she possessed. The Aegis groaned under the strain, but it held, responding as if it knew the importance of this moment. Through the chaos, Alara thought of Earth. She thought of the people who would never see this battle, yet who depend dead on her courage. She thought of children who believed in heroes, families who clung to hope, and engineers who had dreamed of this day for decades. Her hands tightened on the controls. For Earth, she whispered, voice steady despite the tension. For humanity, the Aegis struck again. With pinpoint accuracy, it disabled a command ship, then a cruiser, then another. The explosion spread like wildfire through the enemy ranks. The Xerix admiral, furious and terrified, tried to redirect his fleets, but the damage was already done. Confusion spread, formations broke, and morale began to crumble. What should have been an unstoppable empire now faced chaos and fear, all caused by one small ship from a blue planet they had long ignored. Ilara's mind raced. She knew this was only the beginning. Every strike brought her closer to danger. Every maneuver tested the limits of both ship and pilot. But she could feel the tide shifting. The Armada, once confident and proud, now wavered. One ship, one captain, one secret prototype. It was making the galaxy notice Earth. As she prepared for the next wave, her heart beat like a drum of defiance. She did not know if the Aegis could survive the coming attacks, but she did not hesitate. Humanity's courage, ingenuity, and spirit flowed through her, and for the first time the Xerix Empire realized that underestimating Earth had been their gravest mistake. The first strike had been made. The Armada faltered, and humanity's hidden champion, the Aegis, had shown the galaxy that even the smallest spark could ignite a storm that no empire could ignore. The first strike had shaken the Xerix Armada to its core. Captain Ilara Quinn felt it in the Aegis, the faint tremor of shifting morale echoing through sensors. The Empire had never encountered anything like this. A single ship striking with precision, daring where no fleet dared go. Every destroyed cruiser and command vessel sent shockwaves through the enemy ranks. Chaos spread, and hesitation began to creep into the minds of commanders who had never known fear. Back on Earth, the world began to notice. Military leaders who had been paralyzed by doubt and indecision now watched the reports from the Aegis with awe. Small squadrons were called into action, inspired by the bravery of a lone prototype. Ships that had been idle now took flight, joining the fight. Civilians looked up at the stars, their hearts pounding with hope they had never felt before. Humanity, once ignored, was starting to awaken as a united force. Ilara guided the Aegis with uncanny precision. Every maneuver was calculated, but she allowed intuition to guide her when speed and timing mattered more than raw numbers. The ship seemed to move on its own, anticipating her thoughts, dodging enemy fire with grace and striking where the Xerix defenses were weakest. Her hands never faltered. Her eyes burned with determination. She could feel the courage of Earth flowing through her, a shared strength that no armada could crush. The Xerix admiral, furious and baffled, unleashed his elite warships to corner the Aegis. Massive battleships surged forward, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire planets. Their fire rained down like meteors, yet the Aegis danced between them, avoiding every beam, striking back with devastating precision. The enemy's confidence faltered as their fleet was torn apart from within. One by one, their formations broke, chaos spreading faster than they could recover. Ilara spoke softly into the comms, not for the Empire to hear, but for humanity itself. We fight. We survive. We are not forgotten. Her words, though quiet, carried across the fleet. Pilots and crews, inspired by a single ship's courage, rallied together. Ships moved in synchronized attacks, protecting one another, creating opportunities for the Aegis to strike even harder. Humanity was no longer divided. It was a single heartbeat across the void. The battle raged on. Stars glimmered with explosions as ships collided. Weapons fired and shields flared. Yet despite the chaos, hope grew. Each victory, each destroyed Xerix ship became a spark that ignited the courage of millions. The people of Earth, who had once felt powerless in the face of galactic empires, now understood something profound. Bravery and determination could change everything. Through the comms, Ilara heard the voices of Earth's fleet, trembling with fear but resolute with courage. She smiled faintly, feeling the weight of responsibility yet embracing it fully. Keep moving, she urged herself in the Aegis. Every strike matters. Every life matters. We are humanity. The Xerix admiral, watching his empire crumble bit by bit, felt rage unlike anything he had ever known. His fleet, once invincible, was faltering under the leadership of a planet they had dismissed. And yet the Aegis remained unbroken, a phantom striking fear into every Xyric's heart. In the middle of this chaos, Ilara realized that victory was not just about destroying ships. It was about proving that humanity, small and ignored for centuries, could rise when it mattered most. The Aegis had become a symbol, a beacon that inspired not just pilots or soldiers, but every person who looked up at the stars and dreamed. The battle was far from over. The Xyrix Armada still loomed, vast and powerful, but humanity was awake, united, and ready. And at the heart of this awakening was one ship, one captain, and a courage that refused to be ignored. The battle had reached a terrifying intensity. Stars flashed with explosions, and the void of space trembled under the fury of the Xyrix Grand Armada. Captain Ilara Quinn gripped the controls of the Aegis tightly, sweat streaking her face as alarms blared across the cockpit. The small prototype warship had already faced countless attacks, yet every strike, every maneuver brought her closer to danger. Shields flared and weapons overheated, and she knew that one wrong move could end everything. Despite the fear, Ilara felt a surge of determination. She thought of Earth, its people, its children, its dreamers who had never been taken seriously in the galaxy. Their hope now rested in her hands. She could feel it like a pulse running through the ship, guiding her, urging her forward. "We fight no matter what," she whispered, her voice steady despite the chaos. For them, for humanity. The Xyrix Admiral, furious and desperate, unleashed his most elite forces. Supercruisers bristled with weapons, and massive battleships bore down on the Aegis, their energy cannons glowing with lethal intent. Space itself seemed to burn under their fire. Yet Ilara maneuvered with unmatched precision, the ship weaving between beams of destruction, dodging collisions and strikes that would have destroyed any other vessel. The Aegis responded like it had a mind of its own, divining her intentions, striking when the moment was right. Every strike from the Aegis tore holes in the Xyrix formations. Cruisers exploded, command ships faltered, and panic spread across the enemy fleet. Yet the Admiral's rage only grew, and his attacks became more relentless. The Aegis shuddered under the pressure, systems failing one by one. Lights flickered in the cockpit, warning sirens screamed, and the ship groaned under the strain. Ilara's hands never wavered. She adjusted shields, rerouted power, and calculated every move faster than the Xyrix could react. Then came the moment that would decide everything. The heart of the Xyrix Armada, the command nexus, the largest and most heavily fortified ship, loomed ahead. Its massive shields pulsed like a heartbeat, its weapons ready to incinerate anything daring enough to approach. Ilara's pulse quickened. She knew the risk. One wrong move and the Aegis would be destroyed instantly. But she also knew the reward. If she could destroy the Nexus, the rest of the Armada would collapse like a house of cards. She whispered a prayer, almost to herself, almost to the ship. "We can do this. We must do this." The Aegis surged forward faster than thought, cloaking briefly before striking in multiple directions. Plasma beams tore through shields, engines exploded, and the Nexus shuddered under the precise fury of one small ship. The Xyrix Admiral's orders screamed into the void, but it was too late. His fleet was faltering, his formations breaking, his empire's confidence shaken. Ilara felt exhaustion and fear clawing at her, but she pushed forward, drawing on every ounce of courage and training. The Aegis moved with grace, striking weak points, exploiting every flaw. The once invincible Armada began to crumble under the brilliance and audacity of one ignored warship. Humanity's courage and ingenuity had become a weapon more powerful than any fleet the Xyrix could muster. As explosions lit the void like distant supernovas, Ilara's voice trembled but remained firm. For Earth, for humanity! Across the galaxy, ships under her command felt the inspiration. Every pilot and crew member finding courage in the example of one brave captain. Hope spread like wildfire, and even the Xyrix could sense it, a force they had never understood. The heart of the battle had been reached, and it was clear that history was being rewritten. One small ship, one determined captain, and a hidden prototype were proving that humanity, once dismissed and underestimated, could rise and challenge even the greatest empire in the galaxy. The void of space burned with fire and chaos. Captain Ilara Quinn stared at the Xyrix command nexus, the heart of the Grand Armada pulsing like a dark star. Every weapon on that massive ship could destroy planets. Every shield could shrug off entire fleets. Yet she felt no fear, only determination. Humanity's hope, Earth's survival, and the courage of everyone who had ever been dismissed rested on her shoulders. The Aegis trembled under the pressure, systems glowing red with strain, but it was still alive, still moving, still fighting. Ilara's mind raced. Every strike she had made so far had weakened the enemy, but this was the final challenge. The command nexus must fall or Earth would be lost. She calculated trajectories, shield frequencies, weapon outputs. Every decision counted. Then, taking a deep breath, she whispered, "We do this together, old friend." The Aegis responded as if it understood her completely. Engines humming with renewed energy. The admiral of the Xyrix fleet realized, too late. That one ship was controlling the flow of the battle. Fury twisted his features. "Destroy it! Crush that human before it reaches me." His superweapons roared to life, sending energy beams like death itself racing through the stars. The Aegis dove and weaved, dodging blasts that could have obliterated entire continents. Flames danced across enemy shields, and explosions lit the darkness like distant suns. Ilara's hands moved with precision and instinct. She directed the Aegis toward the Nexus's vulnerable points: shield emitters, engine cores, weapon arrays. Plasma cannons fired, hitting exactly where they would cause maximum damage. For a moment, silence fell over her sensors. Then, the shields flickered, the engines shuddered, and the command nexus erupted in fire and light. The explosion was cataclysmic, a shockwave that rippled through the Xyrix fleet. Ships collided, weapons misfired, formations collapsed. Panic spread like wildfire. From her cockpit, Ilara saw the impossible, the once invincible Armada faltering, its confidence shattered. Humanity's small, ignored fleets now surged forward, striking with courage and precision. Every pilot, every crew member, felt the inspiration of one brave captain and her prototype ship. Fear turned to hope, doubt turned to courage, and hope. Hope became unstoppable. The Xyrix admiral could only watch in disbelief as his empire, built on fear and domination, crumbled before him. How is this possible?" he whispered. He had underestimated humanity. He had ignored Earth. And now his entire armada, the greatest force in the galaxy, was in ruins because one small, overlooked warship had dared to strike. Ilara felt her own exhaustion pressing in. Systems were failing, shields flickered, alarms screamed, but she did not falter. She whispered into the comms, voice shaking but firm. "This is our world. We fight, we survive, and we will never be ignored again." Across the stars, her words echoed in the hearts of everyone watching. Humanity had risen as one, united by courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will. The remaining Xyrix ships fled, scattered, broken in spirit and formation. The Aegis, battered but unbroken, floated above the battlefield like a silent guardian. The stars were quiet now, the destruction settling into an eerie calm. Earth had survived. Humanity had triumphed, not through sheer numbers or overwhelming force, but through courage, intelligence, and heart. Ilara looked at the horizon of space, tears streaking her face. She knew this victory would be remembered for generations. One small, ignored warship had changed the course of history. One young captain had shown the galaxy that humanity, though underestimated and dismissed for centuries, could rise and challenge even the greatest empire. And the universe would never forget. The stars were silent after the storm of battle. The Xyrix Grand Armada had retreated, broken and humiliated. What once seemed unstoppable had been reduced to scattered remnants drifting helplessly through space. Captain Ilara Quinn floated in the cockpit of the Aegis, exhausted but alive, her hands still trembling from the adrenaline of combat. Around her, the ship's systems flickered, groaned, and emitted soft warnings. The Aegis had survived, but barely. Yet for the first time in centuries, humanity had won a war it was never supposed to win. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People poured into the streets, cheering, crying, embracing one another. Humanity had faced annihilation and had prevailed. The small, ignored planet had defended itself against a galaxy-spanning empire. Children looked up at the night sky, eyes wide with awe, imagining the brave captain and her singular ship that had changed everything. Families whispered stories to one another, stories that would become legends passed down for generations. Ilara guided the Aegis back to its hidden dockyard. She had won, but she felt no pride in victory, only the quiet, deep satisfaction that she had done her duty. Engineers and scientists rushed to meet her, tears in their eyes. They touched the ship reverently as if it were alive. "You did it," one engineer said, voice trembling. "We always knew you would." Alara smiled faintly, brushing her hand along the controls. "No," she said softly. "We did it. Together. The galaxy would remember this day, and not just for the destruction of the Xyrix Armada. It would remember the courage of one small warship and its captain who refused to be ignored." Humanity, once dismissed as weak and insignificant, had shown that courage, intelligence, and heart could overcome even the greatest empires. The Aegis was no longer a prototype. It was a legend, a symbol of what the human spirit could achieve when driven by determination and hope. Alara stepped out onto the observation deck, looking at the stars that had once seemed so vast and indifferent. The galaxies beyond were no longer places of fear. They were challenges waiting to be met, adventures waiting to be claimed. Humanity had a voice now, strong and clear, and it would be heard across the universe. She whispered to herself, a promise to the future. "We will not be ignored again." In the weeks that followed, fleets were rebuilt, defenses strengthened, and new alliances formed. Other civilizations, once dismissive of Earth, now approached with respect, curiosity, and caution. Humanity had earned a place among the stars, not through aggression, but through courage, strategy, and resilience. The legacy of the Aegis inspired every pilot, engineer, and soldier, reminding them that one determined mind could turn the tide of war. Alara often visited the Aegis, still in its dockyard, damaged but alive. She touched the hull, remembering the battle, the fear, the hope, and the triumph. "We did it," she whispered, tears in her eyes. The ship seemed to hum in reply, a quiet acknowledgement of the bond they shared. It had carried humanity's hopes, faced impossible odds, and survived. Together they had rewritten history. And so, humanity stepped forward into a new era. The galaxy, once indifferent, now looked at Earth with respect. One small planet had shown the universe what it meant to fight with heart, courage, and ingenuity. And the story of the ignored prototype warship and the brave captain who dared to believe in it would live forever. Captain Alara Quinn looked to the stars once more, a quiet smile on her lips. The universe was vast, full of challenges, but she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Humanity would never again be underestimated. The Aegis had proven it, humanity had proven it, and the legacy of courage and hope would shine across the galaxy for generations to come.